I said, Maya, it's me again and I know I look stupid but I had to ask one more time. She laughed and replied, you already asked 98 times, why would today be different? I said, because I still believe in us, even when everyone tells me I'm wrong. Ethan smirked and said, man, you really don't get it, do you? I felt my face burn and whispered, Maya, I love you and I don't care about money or status. She said, that's your problem, I do care and you have nothing. I told her, I can change, just give me a chance. She snapped, this is my 99th no, so stop embarrassing yourself. I heard her friends laugh and I muttered, I guess loving you made me blind. Maya said, it made you weak. I thought, this pain is tearing me apart, but I said, I was only trying to be real. Ethan said, real losers stay poor. I looked at them and said, one day you will see what you missed. Maya replied, I already see a joke. I walked away thinking this was the moment my heart finally broke. I swore I would never beg. I said, Leo, I lost my job today and I feel like I lost my soul too. He said, you still have me and that means something. I replied, Maya's voice keeps saying I am nice but useless and I believe her now. Leo said, you are not useless, you are just hurting. I said, hurting doesn't pay rent or fix a broken life. Mrs. Carter knocked and said, I need the money by Friday or you are out. I told her, I swear I am trying, please give me one more chance. She replied, this is your last chance so don't waste it. After she left I said, see, even my home wants to leave me. Leo said, homes don't leave, people do. I laughed and said, then everyone is leaving me. Leo answered, I am still here. I said, I feel empty, like nothing matters anymore. He said, you matter to me. I thought his words should help, but my heart felt too tired to listen. I stared at the wall, wondering if giving up would finally end this pain. I said, I was ready to quit everything when you walked into this cafe. Victor said, I don't save quitters, I invest in broken fighters. I asked, why would you care about someone like me? He replied, I see rage in your eyes and rage can build empires. I said, all I have is failure and a heart that got crushed. Victor said, good, pain makes people honest. I told him, I have no money, no future, and no pride left. He said, then you have nothing to lose, which makes you dangerous. I asked, what do you want from me? Victor replied, I want your discipline, your sweat, and your silence. I said, and what do I get in return? He said, I will give you power, wealth, and a new name in this world. I hesitated and said, I don't know if I can survive your training. Victor answered, survival is not optional if you want revenge. I thought about Maya and said, I accept because I refuse to stay weak. He nodded and said, then your old life ends today. I felt fear and hope collide as I realized this deal would either destroy me or turn me into something unstoppable. I said, Victor, my body hurts, but my mind feels sharper than ever. He replied, pain is the price of power, so pay it. I told him, every memory of Maya pushes me to work harder. Victor said, use that anger, don't drown in it. I met Nina and said, I don't understand money the way you do. She smiled and said, risk is just fear with numbers, let me show you. I said, I used to beg for love, now I want control. Nina replied, control comes from knowing where to place your trust. Victor said, trust yourself first, then everyone else becomes a tool. I answered, I am tired of being someone people laugh at. He said, then become someone they fear. At night I whispered, Maya, you still hurt me. I said, but that hurt makes me stronger. Nina told me, your focus is dangerous in a good way. I replied, I am done crying, now I am building. Victor said, good, kings don't beg, they take. I thought every lesson was turning me colder, yet I felt alive. I knew this new version of me would never be weak again. I walked in and said, Maya, it has been a long time since we last talked. She said, I almost did not recognize you, you look so different now. I replied, I guess change happens when people stop doubting themselves. Ethan looked at me and said, so you are the famous investor everyone keeps praising. I said, I work hard, that is all. Maya smiled and said, I always knew you would become someone special. I thought you never believed in me before, but I said, funny how you say that now. She touched my arm and said, we should catch up sometime. I pulled back and said, I am very busy these days. Ethan muttered, must be nice having money. I replied, it is nicer having confidence. Maya said, you sound so calm, like nothing can shake you. I told her, I learned how to stand alone. She looked uneasy and said, "I miss the old you." I answered, "That version of me is gone." I felt their eyes on me and thought, for the first time, I was not invisible anymore. I realized the room was listening to me, and that felt like true power. I said, "Maya, tell me the truth, why did you really reject me all those times?" She sighed and said, "You were poor, and you were not impressive to my world." I felt my chest tighten and said, "So my heart was never enough for you?" She replied, "I wanted security, not just feelings." I said, "Your honesty hurts, but it also explains everything." Clara walked up and said, "I am the reporter who found Ethan's hidden accounts." I told her, "Expose everything, people deserve to know." Maya cried and said, "You cannot do this to me." I answered, "You did worse to me by lying." Clara said, "Ethan stole millions and you knew about it." Maya whispered, "I was scared to lose my lifestyle." I said, "So you sold your soul for comfort?" She said, "I made mistakes, but I still care about you." I replied, "I do not know if that is love or fear." Inside I felt torn, wanting revenge and wanting peace. Clara said, "Karma has already started, just watch." I looked at Maya and said, "Your world is falling because you built it on lies." I felt pain and relief mixing as I realized the truth had finally set me free. I said, "Maya, I heard Ethan got arrested this morning." She whispered, "Everything is falling apart and I have no one left." I replied, "Your friends left because your money is gone." She said, "I was wrong about you and I regret everything." I looked at her and said, "Regret sounds loud when you are lonely." Maya cried and said, "Please help me, I am scared." I answered, "You were never scared when you laughed at me." She said, "I was stupid and I see that now." I felt a strange mix of victory and sadness and said, "You look smaller than before." She replied, "Because I lost everything I thought mattered." I said, "You never valued the things that were real." Maya said, "I value you now." I answered, "You fear being alone, not losing me." She said, "I need you." I replied, "You need safety, not love." I watched her shake and said, "This is the price of your choices." She whispered, "I deserve this." I felt the power shift and knew she was finally facing the truth about herself. I said, "Maya, you are asking for another chance, but I hear fear in your voice." She said, "I lost everything and I do not want to lose you too." I replied, "You never wanted me when I had nothing." Maya whispered, "I was blind, please forgive me." I said, "I forgive you, but I will not go back." She cried and said, "Why are you so cold now?" I answered, "Because I finally learned my worth." Sophia walked up and said, "I hope I am not interrupting." I smiled and said, "You are right on time." Maya looked at her and said, "Who is she?" I replied, "She is someone who sees me, not my money." Sophia said, "I see your strength and your heart." I told Maya, "That is what real love sounds like." Maya said, "So this is goodbye." I answered, "This is me choosing myself." Sophia held my hand and said, "You deserve happiness." I felt peace for the first time in years and knew I was finally free from my past pain. Chapter 8, I chose myself. Exact word count, 200. I said, "Maya, you are asking for another chance, but I hear fear in your voice." She said, "I lost everything and I do not want to lose you too." I replied, "You never wanted me when I had nothing." Maya whispered, "I was blind, please forgive me." I said, "I forgive you, but I will not go back." She cried and said, "Why are you so cold now?" I answered, "Because I finally learned my worth." Sophia walked up and said, "I hope I am not interrupting." I smiled and said, "You are right on time." Maya looked at her and said, "Who is she?" I replied, "She is someone who sees me, not my money." Sophia said, "I see your strength and your heart." I told Maya, "That is what real love sounds like." Maya said, "So this is goodbye." I answered, "This is me choosing myself." Sophia held my hand and said, "You deserve happiness." I felt peace for the first time in years and knew I was finally free from my past pain. I said, "Maya, I can see you standing there watching everything I built." She said, "I never thought you would rise this high without me." I replied, "Your 99 rejections were the fire that shaped me." Maya whispered, "I lost the only man who loved me." I said, "You chose pride over my heart." She answered, "Now I choose regret." I looked over my empire and said, "I found peace without you." Maya said, "Do you hate me for what I did?" I replied, "I do not hate you, I finally let you go." She said, "I wish I could go back." I answered, "Some lessons only come after loss." Maya cried and said, I broke us. I told her, you broke me, then you made me stronger. She said, I will always remember you. I replied, I will always remember who I became. I felt calm and said, this is where my story truly begins. I knew her karma was complete and my heart was finally free, ready to move forward without pain.